said that because, I mean, you've called him in your book the ugliest dog in the world, but I mean, what do you reckon? He looks all right, doesn't he?
She's been in your makeup department for half an hour. You should have seen her before she went in there.
Oh, this is Skitty when she looks good, eh?
Yeah.
All right. Now, what sort of dog is she?
She's a boxer. Normally, you don't see white boxers because they put them down because they're not an acceptable colour in the breed, which is a shame. But with Skitty, I mean, she's got one blue eye, one brown eye. She's normally got one tooth hanging out, and her tongue's probably the longest in the world as well. She's got half a tail, and when she's wet, she's covered in black spots, so she's pretty odd.
And how old is she?
She's getting on for 11 now, so she's a pensioner.
Now, what is it, Bruce? You've done how many books about dogs? Duncan, I must say, you've done how many books about dogs now? You've done.
Well, I've done three that you're holding there. I've also done another one.
And you've done a couple of ghost books, I know that.
Yes, I've done a number of other books, but for some reason the ones about dogs seem to be the most popular.
Well, why do you think? Why do we love stories about dogs even more than cats?
Well, I think...
This is going to split the audience now, aren't we?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm a cat owner who writes about dogs, so I understand the split. I think the thing about dogs is that they do give you unqualified love, certainly in a way that a cat doesn't. My cat isn't terribly attentive to me. And that's important to kids, of course. I mean, when they're just getting to that age where they're beginning to get some kind of identity and their relationship with everybody else is complicated, they've got the dog, which loves them no matter what. And I think that's something that really appeals to kids. They know they don't have to do whatever it is for the dog's sake.
But the lovely idea that you had of actually having a dog that's super smart and is capable of talking but doesn't because it might give the game away.
Well, yes, of course, I write usually about dogs really who are humans underneath it all. And this is a bit of an author's trick. Animals are used a lot in this way in kids' stories. And the thing is that my dog, I think, is being kind of a grumpy, middle-aged man, basically like me. But there's no kid who would be able to relate to this character if it was really a man. So I turn him into a dog, and that makes the character more acceptable. So it's a useful vehicle this way. This just, I suppose, the earliest children's stories, things like Aesop's fables, were all little morality tales about life for kids, yes, but which all used tortoises and hares and whatever else. As characters.
Much better. Now, Bruce, why did you, if you accept the fact that she's the ugliest dog in the world, then why did you buy her?
Well, we heard a friend of ours had a litter of pups, and we went to have a look. And besides the fact she was the only one that was white, she liked chocolate cake, and that sold it. I mean, any dog who liked chocolate cake was fine with us, you know.
She's a chocolate cake addict.
She loves it. Yeah.
Let's have a look at some of the way that Bruce has illustrated these in his book, where you see Skitty in action. Do we have them up? There we go. Keep going, we've got more there.
It's really a book about how other people perceive her. I mean, I say she's ugly, but everybody's got a different opinion.
They're nice illustrations, they're lovely illustrations, aren't they? And of course, the good news is that at the end, I don't think we've got that up there yet, but I'll give the end away. It's one of those lovely kids' books. But I love my dog. I think she's beautiful, the little girl says. In a sloppy kind of way. They are indeed. So you've taken quite a stand, Duncan, in terms, you think that children's books that are being flogged today are perhaps not what kids want?
I think that's true. I mean, there's a lot of really good children's books right now, and in fact, Australia is a very good place for children's books right now. There are a lot of us working, despite my accent. I'm an Australian author. And, but a lot of those books are really written, well, first of all, they're being written by adults, published by adults, reviewed by adults, given prizes in general by adults. And some of those really, when it comes down to it, can be very successful with all the adults and just not work with kids. And I think one of the reasons for that is that there are so many educational points that are put into books. We always think we have to grind some axe. We have to sort of write a book that allows kids to accept some aspect of life, or...
But even things like AIDS, you get children's books now that'll cover AIDS, that'll cover mum and dad splitting up, that'll cover the death of a brother.
Yes, and those all have uses, and there should be books like that. There does sometimes, it seems to me, tend to be too many of those and not enough of the ones that just get kids interested in books and reading. My interest is really to entertain kids. Hopefully, if I write something funny that kids like, they'll read it, they'll get to be better readers, and they'll go on to read other books and when they grow up, perhaps newspapers and other things.
But to entertain and to have fantasies and all those things that kids love and need.
Yes, absolutely. And I think there's probably too little fantasy. I don't write high fantasy. I mean, I suppose everything I write, if I have a talking dog, I suppose it's a fantasy, but I don't write high fantasy. There are very few of those books around, and I think they have to be exceptional to get published, because I think in general, I suspect editors don't like them much because they've sort of grown out of them.
Yes.
I mean, there are all these adults making these choices along
There's a
the
danger
way.
we can get too worthy, isn't there, with these?
Oh,
Now,
yes, absolutely.
Are you a child at heart? Do you have to be a child at heart to see your dog and say,
I think so. I mean, I was into children's books long before we had children. But the point that Duncan was making, I think a lot of the innocence is going out of children's books. I mean, I actually had to change the front cover of the book of Skiddy, because originally I had a paper bag over her head. Now, that might encourage children to put paper bags or plastic bags, which is worse,
Yes.
overhead, and that's obviously dangerous.
Yes.
And now I could concede that. But I think there are also so many other things like feminism and violence, perhaps, that you just really got to be aware of. And it's only since I've been doing the children's books that, I'd even considered that it was necessary to think about it.
I guess the point that Bruce makes and other people make too is that the danger is that we can go overboard in this. We can start to
That's the danger.
see adult visions where children are just over their head. They don't take it literally. They just enjoy the fun of it, don't they?
Absolutely.
Well, I had a story, for instance, a while ago that I presented to a publisher, and they were quite interested. And it was about a race between some kangaroos. And they liked the story, but they wanted to go ahead with it, but they wanted to make some changes. Half the kangaroos had to be female, one of them had to be black, and a female had to win. And though I could concede the points, and I understood, I thought that was perhaps going a bit too far.
Had to be ideologically correct, eh? All right. Well, Duncan's Selby books, his dog character is Selby. His Selby books are in shops now, including the Ghost book. We should have quickly mentioned that too. The names of those, Duncan, help me out.
The Ghost in the Goggle Box, The Ghost in the Gory Story.